Call the Proctor City Council meeting for Monday, April 19, 2021 to order. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do a roll call at this time. Councilor Benson?
Present.
Councilor Johnson? Present. Councilor DeWall?
Present.
Other Administrator Rich, Attorney Bray, Chief Gaddis, Ted Kefit. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the City Council meeting held on Monday, April 5th, 2021.
So moved.
Councilor Reuter made the motion. Is there a second?
Support.
Second by Councilor DeWall. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Councilor Johnson made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I would like to add 6-0, resignation letter from the police department. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Comments and suggestions from citizens watching live on our YouTube feed. The call-in number for that is 218-628-6289. If you have any comments or suggestions, please call in now. Hearing none at this time, we'll move on. Oh. Oh. Hearing none, we'll move on. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Councilor Reuter made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. That will bring us to 6A, Resolution 18-21, declaring Hoghead Festival. In your packet, you had Resolution 1821 authorizing consumption of alcoholic beverages in public places in city in conjunction with festivals. This festival we're referring to as the Hoghead Festival. Packet, just looking for a motion to approve Resolution 18-21.
I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 18-21.
Councilor Reuter made the motion. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. 6B, Sand Salt Shed. Administrator Rich.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you know, we've had a committee that has been meeting. We've met twice. The goal of the committee was to decide on the location of the proposed sand salt shed. You have in your packet 2 locations that were presented to the committee. One was up at the fairgrounds and one was at the Kirkus Street location. You have at your spots a general overview that I added tonight of where that facility would be in relation to Kirkus Street and other facilities on the street, to give you an idea of the general vicinity. We looked at, some time ago, SEH did a concept estimate for the fairgrounds location, which is in your packet. That was for, and I need to say that we based our decisions on the assumption that the entire public works facility, the current facility and what we use the facility for would be located at this new location. So it's not just looking for the location of the sand salt, but a future public works compound or facility. So that was the assumption that was made when analyzing the decision. You have a preliminary cost estimate in your packet of dated 1/27/2020, and that was for the fairgrounds location. And that was for the total facility, everything from the Public Works building to a sand salt garage storage facility to the sand salt facility. The second location you have is Kirkus Street. As you know, the sand salt money is tied to state bonding. We are under a timeline to spend that, and we are under a timeline to get the sand salt facility up and operational according to our MS4 permit. So I asked SEH to break out the Kirkus Street location into 3 phases, being that we would do the sand salt as the first priority, being phase 1. Phase 2 would be the construction of the 40 by 60 storage facility for the sand salt equipment. And then phase 3 would be the final of a larger public works facility to house what we are currently housing down on Pionk Drive. The committee left their recommendation is to recommend the Kirkus Street location and to proceed with the sand salt design, bidding, construction, but to also tandem that with the phase 2 of the 40 by 40-ish by 60-ish garage that will house the equipment that is needed for sand salt movement operations.
Thank you. Was that everything, Administrator?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So we are looking for a motion to approve the Kirkus Street location and recommend the committee continue planning phase 1, which is the sand salt shed, and phase 2, the garage 40 by 60 garage package.
So move.
Councilor Johnson made the motion. Is there a second? I will second that. Any further discussion?
I must have missed this part, but I saw that there was the year 2022. Are we not trying to do it for this year?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Johnson. That part of that recommendation was in the financing of it. So the proposed sand salt building at Kirkus Street, the cost is $538,000. We were awarded $500 in the state bonding, so the city of Proctor will have to come up with a $38,000. The options for coming up with that, there is $48,000 remaining in the general fund building and repair maintenance budget. We had budgeted $50,000 in general fund reserves to get our cash reserves at a higher percentage. I haven't really looked into the feasibility of sales tax revenue. I think that would be the last resort. We would want to go for that money if it's even feasible. And if you were not comfortable doing this project in 2021, my other recommendation is to push it back to 2022 and put it in your 22 budget. Actually budget for that $38,000.
And really my question would be, aren't we going to see an increase in costs if we wait another year and a half?
Yeah.
You know, instead of starting it maybe this year, doing some of it, you know, I'm kind of looking at the cost.
We certainly could. That's a possibility. I feel that the $38,000 is in the budget that we can get this accomplished in 2021.
Okay. I was just surprised the year 2022 being in there. I don't remember us discussing that. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have one question. At what point do we potentially start getting fined for not having this thing moved?
2022, I believe.
Potentially, yes. The engineer thought as long as there were wheels in motion and plans were being made that that we could get some graces given to us on our MS4.
Any further discussion? Councilor Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the map that we have with the salt sand shed, they list two phases, first phase and second phase, but, and on the run for the cost, there's three phases. So as you had mentioned, the building that looks like the purple building that says second phase is actually the third phase?
Yes, there is three phases. The first phase would be the sand salt storage and all of the groundwork and site preparation, a lot of the site preparation for the garage. The second phase would be the garage, the 44 by 60. But it also includes site prep for the 100 by 100. So it's, the second phase is the garage and then site prep for the larger facility.
In doing the cost analysis, has the engineered architects already come up with what kind of foundation they're having, the pads, piers, footings, concrete?
This is conceptual estimating right now, Counselor Benson. There is contingencies and line item budgets for consulting such as environmental and geotechnical in the estimate.
Okay. And on the salt sand storage, what is the capacity? How many cubic feet of sand will it hold? How much?
I do not know that at the top of my head, but I can get that information to you.
Okay, thank you. Also, as I'm going through my notes, because other counselors were insightful enough to ask those questions. One of the other things that, in looking at this site, and I like the idea of using the Minnesota power line, not much you could do with that, but has this been run by like Parks and Rec, since it's city-owned property, to see if it could be used for maybe, the Munger Trail or some other sort of recreational opportunity, planning and zoning to see if it conforms with, the city codes, and public safety to see if, because it appears to be sheltered, good, for visuals, but will it put it at a higher risk?
Our committee was comprised of representatives from all of those committees and commissions that you just mentioned. And that was the purpose of having such a large committee, was to have representation and input from all of those committees. Have they been brought back to committees as a whole? No, they have not.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next one. Thank you.
Councilor Benson?
Yes.
Just from you talk about the Munger Trail, in the Proctor Trail plan, if the Munger Trail goes down through there, it'll go down on the right-of-way that we have, adjacent to the arena there, which is on the other end of the property.
That was just one of many examples, but thank you very much, just to put that up because it's on the agenda later on. So when do they anticipate going out for bids? Is there, if we're pushing it back a year?
I'm not proposing to push it back a year. I'm proposing to complete it in year 2021. My proposal, my suggestion, if you were uncomfortable funding the $38,000 portion of the budget in the 2021 budget, my recommendation was to push the project back to 2022 so you could put it in your budget. But as far as going to bid, we have a preliminary schedule of around June, July, with construction being August, September, October. This timeline is contingent upon product availability and materials availability.
The other question is, on 3 of the little squares, buildings, they have FFE. Is that furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or finished floor elevation? or something else? I'm not familiar with those letters.
I'm not either.
I believe it's the finished floor.
Elevation? Okay. And then the two other, at least one other question I do have is I'm going through the preliminary description of site preps and roadways, and I thought it was interesting that the sidewalk was included, and yet we had, $6.4 million in capital improvement programs with no sidewalks. But that led me to another thought, which is one of the problems that we had the last time we received state money for a salt sand shed. We had to give it back because we didn't do soil borings. And going through here, I do not see soil borings.
Counselor Benson, that was included in your estimate of what I mentioned earlier under other consultants, is the environmental and geotechnical. It's the very bottom line of the estimate.
Are we sure about that?
No, we are not sure, 100% sure.
Okay.
I will say that phase one of this project includes a lot of site prep for the total facility. So should we run into some problems, budget problems with it, there are some things that can be pushed off onto phase two and phase three.
And again, the reason why I'm not opposed to it, just asking questions, and I see they have a line item for seeds and mulch. So I figured they might have a specific for soil borings.
Administrator Rich, you'll find that out, right? That bottom line is in fact soil boring. Thank you. Any further discussion?
No, that concludes my questions.
Thank you, Counselor.
Administrator, Mr. Mayor?
Any further discussion?
Just to answer Councilor Benson's, I believe it was sized in accordance, I can't give you the square feet, but 250 tons of sand salt is what is ordered every year. So that 70 by 80 is approximate size to house that. Is there overages some years? Yes. Is there under? Yes. But I believe it was to approximate 250 tons of the salt and sand.
And that's probably where we get our best price, is if we order it all at once and get it delivered, mobilization.
Believe it or not, the order is placed in like
already
February,
been-
March for the following season.
Yeah, it's already been done.
And you can only order it once, can't you? Once you run out, you're out. Is that not the fact?
No, the way we order it with a volume of people, different government entities. So it's, you get guaranteed what you're gonna order, pre-order.
Right.
And then you get a little special treatment if you are under,
Okay.
because you ordered in that volume group.
Thank you. Any-
My only question, if we're on discussion still, is what we're looking for council tonight is to proceed, because there's a lot of fine tuning that needs to be done. So that would be next to actual engineering spec.
Yes. Yep, what I'm asking the council tonight is to approve the budget of the sand salt facility at 538, which means you're committing to the 38,000. I need to move forward with the state application for the bonding money. And then I'm asking approval to also move forward on the phase two, which is the preliminary design and harder estimate of phase two, which is the 40 by 60 garage, which we would like to do in tandem with the sand salt, because again, it can save us money on time and mobilization and such if we can do them at the same time.
And the location, correct?
And the location, yes.
So you're, oh, sorry, Counselor Benson?
I apologize. I was just wondering if I might be left one more question.
Absolutely.
Have we gotten
Jake. Jake, your mic.
Thank you. Have we gotten at least preliminary approval from Minnesota Power to go under their power lines?
No, we have not.
Okay, so that still could be a,
Correct.
okay. But this is just a vote, as Councilor DeWald mentioned, to proceed and fine tune.
Yes. The large points are approval on the location and approval on the 538,000 on the sand salt storage is crucial to the timing right now.
I have just one more question. Jumping ahead a little bit so that we could possibly get phase 2 completed somewhat, if we had to cut back on something, example, say it's 300 feet away from the power lines for the salt sand, let's say we cut that back 100 feet, so we're only 200 to save infrastructure cost. Does the state look at that in a harmful way? In other words, maybe we actually cut it below 500,000 to save money for the 40 by 60, as long as it's all being utilized for that purpose and it gets completed.
I don't think that what the state wants to know is that right now that you understand that it could cost more than 500,000. That's their concern,
Okay.
or what they look at in the application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Benson, did you have anything further? Thank you. Any other counselors have more discussion on this? Hearing none, so we're looking for a motion to approve the Kirkus Street location, the funds, the 538,000 for the salt sand phase 1 and phase 2, and to direct the sand salt committee to continue with phase 1 and phase 2. I'll make that motion.
We have a motion.
We have
I
first
think we
and
did.
second.
Oh, did we? Yeah, I'm
Johnson
sorry,
and
because
Ward.
we had discussion. My bad. All right, so all in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Thank you. This is a long discussion. I lost track, I guess. That'll bring us to 6C, City of Proctor Brush Dump Pickup 2021 Program. In your packet, you saw a flyer for May 21st is going to be the pickup day, or May 24th, I'm sorry. Just looking for a motion to, I guess, close the fairground site and use the alternative site in the letter moving forward with the one day of brush pickup. Is there a motion to accept that?
Can I just clarify that?
Sure.
Didn't I say that,
It's
didn't I
not-
see that they're going to use the fairgrounds?
This year they will.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, it's not a one-day pickup, it's beginning on.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's beginning on May 24th and will probably last several weeks.
Okay, okay. Then they gotta get on the list by May 21st.
Yeah, correct.
Awesome.
So you have to, excuse me, Mr. You have to get on the list in order to drop your own brush off there? Or they're still picking it up? I'm
The
confused.
list is-
City-
They're
city's
still
pick-
picking it up.
Yes.
You get on the list and they'll pick it up.
Then they know where to go to pick it up. They're not just gonna drive around and pick up brush. You gotta get a spot.
Right, I understand that, but there's going to be no public allowed up to the fairgrounds for any dropping
Correct.
of brush, period.
Correct. Yep.
I'd make a motion.
Counselor Reuter made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Counselor DeWall. Any further discussion?
Just that if by freak nature we have a windstorm or something, assuming that we would potentially open it up for citizens of Proctor if we were to get such a storm.
Storm that we'd another brush pickup. I had a lot of questions I asked. Previously. They're all in this memo, but yeah, any further discussion? Hearing none. Oh, Counselor Benson?
Oh, thank you. Mr. Mayor, Council, they're looking at the old dump site, and at one point, there was a proposal to have a pistol shooting range there. Also located right off of Highway 2, it could be a good economic development site. So I was wondering if in the discussions there was any consideration for the new salt sand shed area to be a brush drop-off site.
I wouldn't say that the committee had any discussion specifically as that, but it is a good idea. It's, if we had to relocate the brush dump pile, the new sand salt facility would be more secure, certainly, for the street crew to watch after the pile on a daily basis. Not discussed, but definitely a possibility.
Yeah. And I understand the site off of Kirkus, because now you got aesthetics and what's visible. And we still have a year or two to work through that. But, you know, maybe this is one of those that should go to public safety to see if they're still interested in the shooting range, or PETA for a site development. Oh, that's it, Mr. Mayor.
It's my opinion that the brush dump could be easily moved, should you want to develop the Uggstead Road property for something else. Just like we're going to be moving it from the fairgrounds, we can move it from this as well, so we can, as I say, cross that bridge when we come to it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Counselor Benson, did you have one more?
I did have one more, but it would not have affected the vote. And do we have a definition of what brush is? Because my idea of what brush might be is different from others, so.
No, we don't have a definition of it.
Okay.
But I know the street crew is pretty liberal in what they accept.
I mean, I know a tree limb that perhaps would not qualify as brush, but. Okay, thank you.
That'll bring us to quotes. Administrator Rich.
Thank you, Mayor. This is part of, and I am going to be looking to Councillor DeWall for input on this as well. We had the entire City Hall facility was gone through by Johnson Controls and what we need to upgrade our HVAC system. And they earlier on came up with a list of recommendations to bring it up to what they thought was fully operational and functional. Councillor DeWall and I asked them to prioritize that list of what was the most important down to the least, and this is a part of working on that list. So they are bringing forth some proposals to you to finish that list, and those three proposals are in front of you.
Thank you. Counselor DeWall, would you like to fill the council in?
Actually, one of the proposals is not ready yet.
Troy, your mic.
Test. One of the proposals is not ready yet. Be looking at the first one, which is for the 1,200. This is critical so that we can get a handle on what kind of capacity we need as we look to replace boilers. And there's a big difference of definitions of what we started with, which was way overbuilt, to what we need for the future. So it's going to give us the load. And then the water test, which is pretty minute. And if you remember when Jess brought this proposal to you before, it was $100 more. Now I see it's $100 cheaper. But that's just to see what's in the sealed system, so we know that we've got the correct glycol and what the makeups, because those can damage heat exchangers, chillers, etc. The middle one is the one that we got to hold off. I'd like to take that off the table for right now. We have a bigger issue that needs to be resolved, and they're working on that. It has to relate with the CFM movement on that side of the building, specifically the police department side. These are the valves but we don't have any control over the fan speeds. So right now, there's just very little air moving over there. And whether you command it to go hot, if you don't have air flowing, you're not going to get hot or cold. So the two that I think we need to address tonight are the load and the water test. And the other one will come back to us when it's more complete, because it's going to involve an air handler unit.
Thank you. So I guess I'll make a motion to approve the Johnson Control bids for the engineered load calculation and the bid for the analysis of water samples.
I'll second that.
Counselor Reuter seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Attorney Bray, now with this third quote, if we don't approve it, don't vote on it, is it going to stay on the agenda under old business, or do we have to push this one to take a vote on it? And
Why don't you quickly make a motion to amend the agenda to include it?
or make a motion to deny this bid?
You could.
I'd feel better doing that, then it's in order at least. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to deny the bid for the install and programming for the 3 rooms.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor DeWall. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Motion passes. Thank you. Brings us to 6E, COVID-19 reopening plan, City Hall PAC. In your packet, there is a guideline, preparedness plan for the City of Proctor regarding COVID-19 and the reopening for employees and public meetings. Hope you've all had a chance to review that, but we're just looking for a motion to approve the opening preparedness COVID-19 plan. And I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve that for discussion.
I'll second for discussion.
We'll open up discussion. A motion made by Mayor Ward, seconded by Councilor DeWall.
I have one item on the Proctor food shelf. I've talked with my brother and with Scott Snyder, and they'd like to go back to operating the way they used to. And I don't see any reason why they couldn't, if they only let one family unit come in at a time with the masks on and everything and do their shopping, and when they leave, they let another one come in. I don't see why that would be any different than people coming in and out for a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I did speak to one representative of the food shelf, and they, this particular person, didn't feel any pull either way with doing it. We mostly talked about the concern of the hallways filling up with people and
Yeah.
not being like, and as in
They're
the
aware of that.
past.
Could
Yeah.
we put in here that they could do it either way, depending on,
Sure can.
that way they can talk to their members and decide, you know, if they're not comfortable, most people, then we'll continue to do it outside, but otherwise, I think they'd like to do it back like they did, so it's not the hassle of having all these boxes everywhere.
Is that feasible, Administrator Rich?
If that's what the council is comfortable with, that's just fine.
I just,
Go ahead, Councilor.
my only thought with that is before we open up too far,
See.
I'd really, really like to get all of our employees back safely, test run that, test run to allow the public to come into the chambers again to voice opinions and concerns, and then maybe look at it as adding, if everything is going good, then adding the food shelf. It can get pretty out of sorts very quickly. Just my little bit of being here, there's lines of people in the morning, and I know what happened last year is we had floodgates and people in different rooms, but I'd like to see it kind of phased in to achieve that goal, Councilor Reuter, of getting back to somewhat normal, but to phase it just to make sure. My most important thing is the employees' safety.
So in this preparedness plan, Councilor DeWall, our employees are coming back May 1, and the food shelf falls under that date of May 15th. Would that suffice your needs there?
I'd refer to Administrator Rich, 2 weeks enough to, because we're going to have some public people coming in. There's going to be some education on that. I would refer to you on your opinion.
I would think that, my plan was for food shelf to continue curbside well past May 15th.
Okay.
That wasn't, that they would go until indefinitely decided by the council. And I would agree with Councilor DeWall too, that I think maybe employees need a certain level of comfortableness with the building first before we start allowing others. I can definitely see both ways. But I do like the plan of phasing it in as well.
I know one of the concerns that jumped up last year at us that we just take for granted is just the way the restroom is. We have one centrally located restroom, and there's going to be some cross interference with people walking back and forth. You know, we have to allow public to use them, their public restrooms. So I'm not against opening up, but I'd like to just see whatever appropriate time there is to gap it a little bit or phase it in at a later time. And the weather's getting nicer, so it should be a little easier.
Councilor Benson?
Social distancing, effective May 1st. We're just using May 1st because it's the first day of the month and we're not bringing people back on a Saturday. It's
No, we're not. Could be changed.
So, with Councilor DeWall's suggestion, bringing back the people that first Monday after May 1st, when do we anticipate public coming in?
So May 15th,
May
public would be allowed on a hybrid type plan. Certain doors will be locked for the public. They won't all be open. We will reopen the city hall door for visitors to come into the front lobby area and then screen those coming back into the area where the employees are. The open to the public for as far as meetings, Councilor Benson, it's in the plan that we would allow visitors at meetings if they call ahead and reserve, because we can only allow, for social distancing, we can only allow about 15 people in chambers, and that doesn't, those 15 people does not include staff and city council members. If the capacity or the reservations go above 15, we could either make them all watch it on track 7, or it's the 15 first come, first serve. So to your answer about when will public be allowed, May 15th on a limited basis with controls put in place.
So as I read it, Ms. Mayor, effective May 15th, but the first day is May 17th.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reuter?
Not to be argumentative or anything, but I'd like to see the food shelf be able to do, I understand where Troy's coming from, but we're talking only on Wednesdays between the hours of 10 and 1, which isn't usually a time that other people are meeting. They only get between 10 and 20 customers during the whole day. And if they came in one at a time, we're not going anywhere near the city offices where the employees are. I just don't understand why we can't let them do that.
No, and I would agree with you, Councilor Reuter, on that. If we're allowing others into the building up front, as long as we're doing one at a time, I don't know why that would be a problem, but again, I guess I defer to the administrator, but I would agree. Back, are you done with that, Councilor?
Yes, sir.
Back to that 15, we're going to allow the first 15. Attorney Bray,
Yes.
can we do a first come, first serve basis?
We have, it's our building, we have the discretion on A, number, and B, how we regulate that number. We certainly can.
So if we do the first 15, put it on a list,
Yeah, and if people haven't made, I mean, we're reopening, we can do it slowly, and certainly we have the ability and the authority to regulate how many people come in.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we're not gonna just open it up to just let the first 15 people come, right? To me, I would say that they'd have to be somebody that's got something on the agenda to come and talk to us, at least in the beginning.
Can you do it that way?
You could do it that way, but you're gonna have to make
Bless you.
the meeting available somehow, some way to the other folks too.
Well, and I think our original plan was to allow the first 15 to make reservations. And correct me if I'm wrong, Administrator Rich, but the first 15 could make reservations, reserve their spot. And if there exceeds the number of 15, the meeting is still available, live feed. Counselor DeWall.
I have a twist because I like Counselor Ryder's idea. I think, I mean, this is a learning curve for all of us, but I agree first 15. But if by chance there is somebody that does have a specific agenda item on the agenda and they're not part of the 15, I think they should get some type of preferential treatment. And I don't know if that's discriminating, but I mean, that's why we have an agenda out.
And that's what you were saying, correct, Counselor Reuter?
Well, I was just saying, I didn't think we were gonna let anybody come in unless they had something on the agenda, but I don't know if we can do that. I mean, I don't have, I think the way, if we do it the way Troy's talking now about first 15 sign up, but if all of a sudden number 16 calls up and says he's got something on the agenda, then we'd work it out somehow, I guess.
Yeah, that would be, I think you could probably deviate from the number 15 if somebody has something specific they wanted to address the council with, and they're on the agenda.
I wouldn't say deviate. 16 becomes 15 and 15 gets waitlisted. Because they have nothing, unless 15 does have something on the agenda, then you go to 14. You know, it's preferential treatment to those who actually have an agenda item that's being decided upon.
I get that. And just so long as we're available to the other folks who might have wanted to attend in person, but we're not letting them. So, but we're doing it now. I mean, we're available to people who want to watch. And they could call if they need to call too.
Just, does that muddy the waters a little bit? I mean, if you have an item on the agenda, you know you have an item on the agenda, you probably are going to get on that list right away.
Well, it's cleaner just to start out. We could start out if you have an agenda item on, you're welcome to come to the meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll have to just kind of feel it out to see how many. I mean, traditionally we have 5-10 people come, but it's important to have the rules set up so that they're equal to everyone.
You could just cap it at 15 and say preference is given to those who have items on the agenda.
I like that language. You got that, Administrator?
So meeting attendance is limited to 15 members of the public who want to speak to the council about items on the agenda? Is that what you're proposing?
Didn't he say with preference given to those that have a?
Yeah.
With
So
preference,
we're going to
okay.
cap it at 15. I think the change is going to
With-
be capping it at 15 with
Okay.
preference to
Those-
someone that has an agenda item.
And remember, they're making reservations as well, so some of that we can manage in an office level.
Then one of my other questions was on page 1, second paragraph, first sentence, where it says the COVID reopening preparedness plan is administered by the city administrator who maintains the overall authority and responsibility for the plan. Could we get council added to that as well?
Sure.
Only because I would like to see if something's going to change, what the changes are going to be. So I think right now we got 3 changes to this preparedness plan. One would be open the food shelf to one person at a time. One would be a cap of 15, preference to someone with an agenda item, and the adding of council to that first sentence, second paragraph. So is there a motion to accept those changes and this preparedness plan?
I'll make that motion.
Councilor Reuter made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor DeWall, or Councilor Benson, I'm sorry. Any further discussion on that? Councilor Benson.
Thank you. This is for the administrator. I don't want to know the names. I don't need to know them. I would just wondering if you have a feel for the percent of staff, both on City Hall side and perhaps the police side, that have been vaccinated.
I do not know that.
Any further discussion? Councilor DeWall.
This is for Attorney Bray. We don't have any right to know that, do we?
Oh, who's coming in?
Who's vaccinated and who's not?
I believe that would be a HIPAA violation.
Probably would. Well,
And-
we're not, I don't know that it would be a HIPAA violation necessarily, because we're not the custodians of the record, and we're not disseminating the records. But then again, HIPAA wouldn't be the issue. I think privacy would be the issue, so I would steer clear of requiring to know who's been vaccinated and who has not. Although, if we did want to push the envelope, we could ask.
I'm just curious of the difference of like a medical facility or a hospital. Employees don't have a choice, they're getting vaccinated.
Yeah.
What, private, public, is that the difference?
It probably is. And understand that this is just it's not a guess, it's a hypothesis that I'm making. Without looking up whether we can ask for that information. I'm not certain, but I'm guessing that we might be able to, but then again, why do we want to even step into that morass?
And the reason why I ask, and again, I don't want to pry into anybody, but when you're in a workplace, you kind of have a feel of what the percentages are. We know that not everyone will get the vaccine. Some people just don't want to get it. But, if we're inviting people in, I was just curious, are we at 75% or are we at 10%?
Yeah, and I don't know how you'd get that number if we can't ask.
I know like the dentist, it's asked before you go to your appointment.
Oh, is it?
They ask, have you had any vaccines
Okay.
for the COVID? They don't ask what particular vaccine, but have you had them as a part of their check? Other than, do you feel the symptoms? What did you call that? A pre-check?
Pre-health screen.
Pre-health screen.
That could also be flipped, Councilor DeWall, it could also be flipped to how do we know the members of the public that have been vaccinated as well? So I would agree with Councilor Bray that once you start asking those questions, you need to apply them across the board. Employees could say the same thing. We don't know members from the public that have been vaccinated, and we're bringing them into the building.
And again, I would never think about asking someone, just trying to get a feel where we're at.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. 6F, Fire Department Retirement. In your packet, there was a letter from Jay Boysen with the Proctor Fire Department. After 21 years of service, He is retiring from the volunteer fire department, so we're just looking for a motion to accept his retirement letter.
I will move with grateful appreciation for putting his life on the line to perhaps save my sorry butt. So an honor to make that motion.
Counselor Benson made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Reuter. Any further discussion? I guess I would just like to thank Jay for his 21 years of service. That's a long time to be on a volunteer fire department, and it's a thankless job, and you miss out on a lot of family functions and holidays and all that fun stuff. So thank you to Jay for his service to the city. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. 6G, Arbor Day Proclamation. In your packets, a proclamation we do annually for the Arbor Day here in Proctor. We usually, street department will plant a tree. Looking for a motion to approve the proclamation.
So move.
Counselor Johnson made the motion. Is there a second? I will second that. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Counselor Benson.
Is the tree planting by the street department going to be public, or because of COVID, just a very quiet, solemn affair, much like last year?
I have not heard what their plans are for that, but we can definitely find out.
And if I might make one other suggestion, just to localize this proclamation, making it about Proctor, could we include a whereas that this is the 29th year Proctor has been named a Tree City USA city? That would be a
Administrator Rich.
friendly amendment.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Oppose? Motion passes. 6H, American Rescue Plan, ARP, Counselor Benson.
Thank you. Federal guidelines that they're still being drafted. In our last agenda packet, we had received a little bit of a primer, a background on the American Rescue Plan, the ARP. And I think now, not at this meeting, but perhaps at the next couple of meetings, take the next step in how to best deploy that money. I know I would like to see some of the money used for small business loans, because they're the ones that pay the higher taxes, and if they can improve their businesses, it'll return back to the community with higher sales tax revenues. But I think we need to have the discussions to make a determination how it will be used. Perhaps, we had talked about community development block grants. Some of those items didn't get funded. So yeah, let's have that discussion on how we're going to invest those dollars.
Thank you. Counselor Benson, I guess, are you looking for this to be added into the next agenda, or are you just looking for counselors to shoot Administrator Rich our ideas?
I mean, I think it would be appropriate to put it on the agenda and maybe come up with at least a memo for some additional directions on that subsequent meeting, put it on the agenda for next meeting, and then the following meeting come up with more of a plan of attack.
It's just, I know personally speaking, it's going to be hard for me to come up with ideas and areas where we need to put this money, because we don't have a final amount of what we're going to be getting.
And it doesn't have to be a final amount, because that's going to change, but we know whatever dollar amount we get, we could allocate a percentage to different programs or ideas or.
But again, those percentages will change dependent upon the dollar amount we receive, wouldn't they? I mean, a
No,
percentage
percentages are odious. They'll always be, whether it's 10% of a dollar or 10% of
But
$50.
10% is gonna be a high, it could be higher or lower. But, okay, so you're looking to address this?
And the only reason I brought it up is that I was in a meeting a week or two ago with some city administrators and mayors, and those communities have already allocated those dollars. So at least, I'm not saying let's do it right now, but let's begin that discussion.
Thank you. Anyone have any further discussion on that? Hearing none. We'll move on. 6J, legislative update. Counselor Benson.
I think there was.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, 6I, Local Board of Appeal.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one.
And 6I was put on there because two things. One is the appraisers, the county is not going to be here at the meeting. They're going to be doing it remotely. And usually they give us a primer, the little book. And I know at least two other cities in St. Louis County that have their Board of Appeal the day before ours, and they got their books last week. And we haven't gotten ours. And usually it's anywhere from 5 to 10% of the homes in Proctor get sold. So it's pretty big, and I would like to not get it at the last minute. Also, I had passed out a grainy black and white photo. On one side, you'll see like a little thin line along St. Louis River Road. One side is 12 feet. At the right-hand side, the east side, it's 4 feet. And that was valued at $8,700, which was an 8,000% increase. On the other side, you will see a parcel right off of Uggstead Road, north of I-35, just about an acre. And that was valued at $2,600. And that's got water, sewer, obviously street, curb, gutter. And the other one is in a ditch, and it's $8,000. And that's $2,000. So these are some of the questions that will probably maybe come before us. And again, just something to start thinking of, because, in my experience at the last meeting, it was more the county driving the discussion than the city. And, looking out for our citizens, I think, should be first and foremost. And without the county here, again, just give it some thought, and, perhaps we could, the administrator, Rich, could get us the books so we could look at that. And, again, the appraisers, they're out looking for the county, not for the citizens. And I certainly could tell my tale, but I won't bore the council with it. But that's just some examples that we may see.
Thank you, Counselor. Now we'll go to 6J, legislative update. Counselor Benson.
Just to say that, our sales, construction, sales and use tax item went before the House Tax Committee, 2 days worth of hearings, and it passed. It still has to go to the Senate, but it'll probably end up in the conference committee. We did not testify, unlike the first time we testified, the mayor and myself. But then again, neither did 12 other cities, so I don't think, in this case, less was more. And out of the 13 cities seeking that sales and use tax, ours was the lowest. So that was interesting. There's also another bill, construction exemption, House File 991, where there's so many cities like us asking for that exemption on sales tax on construction materials that they're just trying to pass a blanket bill. But that's only for public safety, fire, not for street garages. So, depending on how this session goes, we might want to add street departments in on it. Fire protection districts, that was brought up, made it through the House, and it's fire districts, as Councilor DeWall probably knows better than I, what they are, but this one was patterned after Cloquet, so it might be something we could look at in the next budget session to see if that makes sense. And the last big deal item was City of Hermantown asked for like a $12.4 million in bonding, has to go before their citizens for a hockey rink, and some of it to the Munger Trail, the Proctor Hermantown Munger Trail, but there's also a second bill in there for the Willard Munger Proctor Hermantown State Trail Spur for $1.4 million that will bring it to the edge of Proctor. And I bring it up now. I don't think we could get any legacy funding. I don't know if we could, try to submit a bill. That would be up to Representative Murphy if she could dovetail it in. But 1.4 million is considerable, and this was something that was started right here in this room back in 2007, where it was Proctor's idea. That's why it's Proctor Hermantown, 13, 14 years ago. But Hermantown couldn't agree on where the trail should go, how to get it done, so we had to give the money back. And then when we got the money the second time, the city of Proctor, we, the council, gave it up and let Hermantown be the fiscal agent for all that money for the funding. And, you could look at the Trail Spur booklet, and it's interesting, perhaps not like we should, we would want it, but definitely I think, again, that should be on our radar. We should start now asking Representative Murphy if there's a way we could tag onto it. If not, it's a good start for the next bonding session, which would be next year. This is not a bonding year.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Councilor Benson on any of that? Hearing none, we'll move on to 6K, food trucks. Councilor Benson.
I lost my notes for that, but I think I could, off and on
Him?
we've been talking about, perhaps,
Your mic on?
the food truck, we have been discussing that off and on. Summer's rapidly approaching. I don't know if we need an ordinance or not, just to make sure that they're legal, because I think it's a great idea. It brings an extra added attraction to town. And I just want to also make sure that our brick and mortar businesses are protected and the city gets their sales, food and beverage tax as well. So I turn to the attorney.
I sent all of the city councilors an email just about 20 minutes ago or so. And what it says essentially is that the city can regulate food trucks. We can't refuse to allow them in the city, because if they are licensed with the state, the Department of Health, they can be here, but they can't be in any one location more than 21 days.
In a row? Or
No, just
for
21 days annually.
Annually, okay.
The city can regulate them to make sure that they're properly licensed and have met health and safety regulations. That way we can collect a little bit of licensing fees as well.
Now, we have a peddler's
We do.
license. Is that kind of the same?
No, because there's no health and safety requirement for just a run-of-the-mill, kind of generic peddler's license.
Okay.
And the intent is not to ban them, the intent is to make sure that they're legal, we get what we need to get, and the other businesses are protected.
I can see what the league has for, I'm sure that they have samples of ordinances out there for other cities who have regulated food trucks. I can see what's out there.
I would, if I could, just like to interject that I think, it's my opinion that the peddlers and solicitors transient merchant section of the code is sufficient. The city of Proctor, what I know right now, does not regulate health and safety standards in current restaurants. That's not something that you do. And you're proposing to add this to another business, which also brings a level of enforcement upon it. The peddlers and solicitors merchant code talks about what a transient merchant is. It discusses the license required and application, terms, fees, refunds, display, and prohibited practices. So it would be my recommendation that this just falls upon the peddlers and transient merchant code of the code book.
I'm sorry, what was that last?
It would be my recommendation that food trucks fall under our code with the peddlers and transit merchants section of the. I have concerns about regulating and enforcing health and safety standards when we don't do that currently with other businesses.
And if I could interject, Chief Gatis, we dealt with this, was it last year or the year before? It's a food, but it was more of a dessert thing. And we ran that through our peddlers. Thank you.
And we wouldn't really be regulating health and safety. We would be just making sure that they're properly licensed through the state. That's all that was.
In that peddler's license, does it state anything about having?
No, it does not state anything about providing proof of any state regulations of any type of peddler or business that would come in a temporary.
And do we do that with any restaurants, bars in the city? Do we require them to show us their health department certificates?
No, we do not.
Thank you.
And the other thing, I may be getting the form wrong, like not a 1099, but there is a state form that I know, like the Fair Association passes out to all their vendors to ensure that, they get their names, license numbers, so they could make sure that, they get their sales tax and they conform to the state laws. And again, I don't want to make it more bureaucratic than it already is.
Yeah, in Councilor Benson, we did add a local sales tax information flyer, frequently asked questions flyer to all the home-based business licenses that we gave out this year, and we certainly can do that to peddlers and transits too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the food trucks? Hearing none. We'll move on to 6L, annual Councilor Benson.
I guess it was already addressed earlier in the agenda with the brush pickup. I got nothing new to add.
6M, LMAC parcel, Councilor DeWall.
Yeah, just bring this up because it's an audit question every year. When I was involved, and I know how Leslie, Administrator Rich had to deal with it, but I'd like to somehow clean the slate. We all have the real estate agreement that was.
Councilor DeWall. No, I think you're on 6N. 6M is the LMAC parcel split.
Oh, Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I guess I'm just curious, I don't see that it was taken care of when I look at in the St. Louis County. As a council, we, I believe, did this in 2017, 2018, and this was to make an easement for, I believe it was the Talberts, to build a home and have access off of Uggstead. And I'm just curious where that's at, because it was supposed to have been taken care of in 2017 and it wasn't. And then I remember having to go through and find all the minutes, but I still don't see it as recorded, and I'm wondering why hasn't it been recorded?
Because when I sent it up the first time to get recorded, I didn't realize that they had rejected it. And I assumed it had been recorded until I looked and I found the rejection. They wanted a map. And so we sent it up late last week. I got Jess, Counselor, or City Administrator Jessica Rich, keep screwing up your name, sorry, to draw the map for me using the tools on the GIS mapping, because I am not good at that. So it's 22 feet, 22 feet, and 22 feet. So we sent that up, and hopefully the map will satisfy them. There is only one paper 3rd Street in the city adjoining the parcels that we described. I don't know how that was confusing to them. But they claim it was confusing, so.
So at this point, it's going to be handled.
Yeah,
I guess I would leave it up to Administrator Rich then, just to put it on communications. I feel kind of bad because I put myself out there saying this was going to get handled to the residents, and it didn't, so it kind of threw me underneath the bus. Therefore, I'm a little upset why it's taken us 4 years to deal with this. So hopefully moving forward, we'll be better at dotting the i's and
my
crossing the
apologies.
t's.
I just lost the rejection when we moved our office.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Did anyone have any discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move on. 6N, AA Hospitality Purchase Agreement. Counselor DeWall.
I didn't have my mic on before, so nobody heard. This is an agreement that was way back in 2014. You all have it before you. This is still on our books. This isn't done. This isn't a done deal in any means. I just, for audit purposes, it doesn't help us, because it's just money that we have to put into a fund. We can't spend it. And I'm wondering if there's any types of years of limitations.
I've got an idea. If you take a look at the agreement, when it talks about the payments they were supposed to make, they paid us 20 grand, if I remember right.
Yes.
We're supposed to refund it if the purchase for any reason doesn't go through. It says in that paragraph. But later on in the agreement, if you look at paragraph 22, got to get back there now. Okay. Paragraph 22 talks about remedies. And it says if the buyer defaults, and the buyer did default, just backing up a bit, the reason the buyer kind of stopped dead in its tracks is because there was a purchase of that row of shops that's by the liquor store, by a new entity. And they were operated out of Chicago. And I don't know if I sent you that exchange of emails between me and that lawyer from Chicago, but they were hung up on a restrictive covenant that was recorded against the land, talking about 15 days if we're going to sell property that somehow disrupts their business. Well, this doesn't have anything to do with their business. From my standpoint, the restrictive covenant wasn't even triggered. But they said, we don't know if we're going to give our consent. Well, I said, then you can purchase that little strip of road if you want to. If we give you notice, and even though you don't have the right to notice. Be that as it may, the buyer kind of got cold feet about that, but they didn't ask for their money back. Nevertheless, I think we could take the position that the buyer defaulted. Say, here's your 10-day notice. Oh, by the way, we're keeping the money you paid because you've defaulted on this. And this language is more specific about the default than the language talking about refunding the deposits that have been made. And if you note, paragraph 22 says that if the buyer defaults under this agreement, seller shall have the right to terminate this agreement by giving 10 business days written notice to buyer. If the buyer fails to cure such default within 10 business days of the date of such notice, the agreement shall terminate, okay? The next paragraph says if seller defaults, that is, if we default, the buyer shall give 10 days written notice to the seller, and if we fail to cure, then the agreement's terminated and we have to refund the money. Now, the previous paragraph doesn't mention refunding any money. So I would just take the position that if we want to do this, we can terminate the agreement by giving them notice, and if they don't do anything to cure, we keep the money and run it through our general fund.
And I guess what I'm looking for is for council to come up with a decision on how to proceed with this so that we can move on from it. Because the way it sits, it's doing us no good. And if we do move on from it and it goes in that favor, which is what I would hope, I mean, we can certainly use the funds in areas that need attention. And then it keeps the books clean, and then next year, when our director of finance has to sit down with the auditors, it's one less thing to have to run through.
Well, I will make a motion to direct Attorney Bray to write a default letter to this AA Hospitality with the language that, you know, you defaulted, we're keeping the funds.
I'll second it, seems my name's on the agreement.
Waiter seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes.
And either they attempt to cure the default, or they don't, and we keep the money.
Yep.
So either way, it gets done.
Thank you. Bring us to 6O, resignation letter. It wasn't in the packet, you got it before the meeting started today, but Andrew Liebel wrote a resignation letter to Chief Gatus. Effective May 2nd, 2021, he is resigning from the Proctor Police Department. Just looking for a motion to accept the letter of resignation.
I will move the letter of resignation.
Councilor Benson made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilor Reuter seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Bring us to members' concerns. Administrator Rich.
I will just report on 2 items. This week, city staff and I sat down to revisit adopting the code. Appropriate sections are going to be given to certain committees and sections of that are applicable to the code. Also, within the next week, each city council member is going to be given what we think is a full and complete copy of the code for you to review with hopeful passing of it within the next month or 2. And then at your council spots, you have a draft, April 19th, 2021, of the City of Proctor Advisory Committees and Commissions background and process. I ask that you review that. I feel like we're coming very close to a final copy of this. Maybe one other item I would like to add to it is a graph of what positions will be coming up. We're proposing to stagger all positions on committees and commissions of what seats will be coming up within the next 3 years to add to the document. That's all, Mayor.
Awesome. Councilor Benson. Oh, did you have a question for?
I have a question. Is there a way? Administrator Rich, is there a way that you could send this at least to me or maybe the others where we could use our computers to cross and underline? And
Sure can.
thank you.
Is there any other questions for Administrator Rich? Hearing none. Councilor Benson.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I got, since I've spoke a lot this evening, and I do apologize in advance to Administrator Rich, Memorial Day is coming out, and we would like to have it outside. And if it rains, we're not proposing to come inside, just probably reduce it just to the observance, laying of the wreath, the salute to the dead. But we were wondering if the scouts could come in and use the chairs. And I only bring it up now because I didn't want to wait till the next council meeting, because then we're getting late and I'm trying to arrange people.
I am not familiar with scouts using the chairs involved. Is that, do they come in and bring chairs outside, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the room, there's a bunch of chairs. Boy Scouts Troop 84 comes in. They bring them outside. They set them up. The chairs will be social distancing, mostly for the old people. We're going to encourage as many as we can to bring their own chairs. The observance will be abbreviated this year because we usually have the Proctor Community Band. They have not practiced, so that'll shave 15 minutes, 20 minutes off of the program. And then afterwards, the scouts will bring them back in. If you'd like them to sanitize them, they certainly could do that as well.
We can make accommodations for them, Counselor Benson.
Okay.
And I guess I would just ask that they wear a mask when they're in, just like anyone else.
Yeah, and in social distancing, masks will be required unless you have a speaking part.
Thank you. And I'm not glaring at you, Counselor Benson. I just cannot see with the sun.
Yeah, I thought you were squinting. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor DeWall.
No, the only thing I was going to touch base on, Administrator Rich already did, so thank you for getting this going. I just don't want to lose sight of it. We have a lot of things on our plate, but we can't lose sight of it. The only other thing I wanted to bring up, just under members' concerns, was I appreciate very much the kind of first quarter snapshot that Finance Director Leslie did. I thought it was good. I guess I'm just reaching out to all the counselors. At some point in time, we're going to have to, probably after second quarter, we're going to have to make some pretty serious decisions with some money and projects, because we have more projects than we have money, and start thinking about that prioritization. I'm just kind of throwing that out to everyone. It's certainly on my mind. We have a lot of big things happening, future things, and we still have some roads to pave here right in our existing city hall. And then with the salt and sand project, and just obviously thinking about the street department, the significance of that building going up this year versus next year really makes or breaks the efficiency of how we salt and sand our roadways in the winter by not having the loader close proximity to the pile, and how we can generally have one person take care of that right now, both items. And if we have to delay the building, you know, that's going to bring a cost. So just start thinking about those major projects. That's all that I have, Mr. Mayor.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Reuter.
I just have one quick question on, what's the status on the dump site becoming part of Proctor? Did we
That I
ever
don't
get
know.
that?
I think
or
it's been done.
Is it done?
Oh, that is in my list of projects to do. The last we had thrown out the legal description in the application to the state because we needed to work out issues with the legal description. So it is on my list of my to-do list. The only maybe headway I could report on is I have had discussions with Midway Township that'll be coming back to them and explaining that it's not a new annexation, that it's the same exact one, just changing the legal description in the hopes of softening that and any controversy that a new request might bring once it comes across their desk.
Yeah, well, that doesn't have to be at the top of your list. We've been talking about this for years, so.
Is that going to delay turning that site into the, no?
We
No,
still
we
own
own
it.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. I just got a, oh, Counselor Reuter, were you finished? Thank you. Before the meeting regarding issues on social media or surrounding speeding going on through town, other streets. Chief Gatus has sent officers up to clock vehicles. They did not witness anyone at that time, but he has some other ideas on ways to curb speeding, so the city is aware of it and working on it, addressing that issue. So the other thing I have is Blacktop Park on 3rd Street and First Avenue. Rick and the street department went out and updated the basketball rims and nets. They put new rims and nets on those hoops because some citizens were asking if we could do it. They were going out every month and fixing them. So we updated some basketball hoops anyway at that place. So that is all I have. Attorney Bray,
None.
nothing. That being said, I'll look for a motion.
So move.
Councilor Johnson made the motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Councilor Reuter. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Oppose? Administrator Rich, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Roweeder,
Yes,
Counselor Benson, Mayor Ward.
Yes. Motion passes. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Counselor DeWall made a motion. Is there a second?
second,
Sent by Counselor Reuter. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oppose? Motion passes. Thank you.